Am I the jerk for using the dryer when my housemate's child is sleeping? I live with a couple of housemates and they're almost 3-year-old. I work 5 days a week doing 9-hour shifts between 6:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. One of my housemates also works 5 days, while the other is a stay-at-home mom but will work 2 half-days throughout the week. Often, I try to get all my washing done on a Saturday morning, but frequently my housemates choose to do washing on a Saturday too. This means my washing gets pushed to the afternoon evening, resulting in my washing needing to be in the dryer at the same time the child goes to sleep at 6:30. I feel they need to use the other 3 to 5 days a week, depending on her work schedule, to get their washing done. They regularly ask me not to use the dryer after their child has gone to sleep. But when I work full-time and get home at 6:30, that means I am not allowed to do any washing after I get home throughout the work week. I completely understand I need to be respectful of their child and not make excessive noise when she is sleeping. I can assure I am by no means a noisy housemate, as I spend the little spare time I have in my bedroom sleeping. I also make sure to wait until the child is asleep before I turn the dryer on, just in case it disrupts her falling asleep. Every time I have had the dryer running while she is sleeping, she has never woken up, but they still don't want it on. I simply can't understand why the dryer is a problem at all. She sleeps in her own bedroom with constant white noise playing, with the bedroom door shut, and typically will not wake up until morning. The child is a good sleeper. The dryer is in the laundry behind a closed door. With the door shut, it isn't disruptive. In winter, everything takes so long to air dry that it starts to get that wet dog smell while drying, meaning I need to use the dryer. I don't think that the dryer is a disturbance since the child has never woken up when the dryer has been running. Am I the asshole for using the dryer after she has fallen asleep? Am I being unreasonable? If they're going to make demands on when the laundry facilities can be used, they should do their laundry during the week and let you handle yours on Saturday mornings. Kids need to adapt to normal household noises like a dryer running. It's not reasonable to avoid doing laundry after getting home from a full-time job. If they can't make this concession, then using the dryer in the evenings is totally justified. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that him always wearing a hoodie with the hood up in public places and museums is embarrassing for me? My boyfriend constantly wears a hoodie with the hood up when we go outside. Since he considers his visit to me in Paris more of a vacation, he only packed loose, comfortable clothes, more specifically loose pants, t-shirts, and hoodies. He constantly wears his hoodie up, no matter the weather outside, even in museums. I asked him about this, and his argument was, if it's windy outside, it protects him from the wind. If it's cold, it keeps him warm. If it's sunny, it acts like a hat from the sun. But mostly, he wears it because he says it's a comfort thing. He considers Paris very agitated and crowded, and says that all that stimulus is overwhelming. In museums, it helps him block out all the buzzing and allows him to fully focus on the artwork in front of him. He says it's his way of pretending to be alone in a museum and free to take in the art. He always enters a restaurant with his hood up, but takes the hood down when we sit down. In shops, if the security guard tells him to take off the hood, he does. I've confronted him about the fact that I feel embarrassed walking around the museum with him and that he looks weird, like a burglar or a homeless person. But he said it brings him comfort and is useful most of the time. On one occasion, I told him I wouldn't walk with him through the museum if he kept the hood up and walked 5 meters behind him, but he said that if I am embarrassed with him, he is okay with me keeping my distance. But I came back after 10 minutes. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend that him always wearing a hoodie with the hood up in public places is embarrassing for me? Museums and monuments in Paris don't judge your outfit at all, so tourists can wear comfortable clothes like hoodies without any issue. If it bothers you, maybe it's more about your own feelings rather than what other people think. High-quality restaurants might be a different story, but generally, casual clothing is fine for most places. Try to understand why it bothers you before worrying about strangers' opinions. Am I the jerk for telling my nephew's mom and her family that they have double standards I don't agree with? So my brother has an 8-month-old son with his ex-girlfriend, who was also my best friend for 20 years. My friendship with her went downhill after she and my brother started dating. They didn't seem good together, she asked, and I told her as much, and she didn't like that, so she wasn't really talking to me. Then they had a surprise pregnancy and broke up almost immediately after that. Apparently my brother's reaction wasn't what she wanted because she thought the pregnancy was a bad thing initially, and he was excited. She was so sour about it when they told us she was pregnant. It was no surprise when they broke up. She tried to befriend me after the breakup again and told me how much she missed me and how right I was. Her family, who I was close to for many years before, weren't as thrilled by her reaching back out to me because they felt like I cursed the relationship between my brother and her. During the pregnancy, she started dating someone else and moved in with him. My brother went on some dates with his now girlfriend and was called out by the ex-girlfriend and her family for dating while he should be focusing on being a dad. They said he was disrespectful to her dating while she was carrying his child. That double standard astounded me because she was the one who broke up with him, and she was also dating and living with someone else already. My nephew was born, and they complained about my brother's involvement and how he wouldn't just leave her with the baby for as long as she liked. A DNA test was carried out because they weren't married, custody was set up, and now they split time with the baby. My brother and his girlfriend are still dating. My nephew's mom broke up with the other guy. Since the breakup, my nephew's mom and her family have been trying to get me back into the fold with them, and I have kept my distance, but politely. They recently asked me about this though, and why I was so cold with them, and I told them they have a double standard I don't agree with. I told them they treated my brother like trash and acted like he was a monster for dating while she was pregnant, but she was allowed to live with another man and be with him, even having at the birth of my nephew. But they were still angry. My brother had a girlfriend who he didn't live with or even have around my nephew yet. I told them I wasn't okay with that and couldn't get on board. They told me I should see how it's different and accused me of being a sexist asshole. Am I the asshole? Nothing you've done here makes me think you are the jerk. They asked, you answered, and did so respectfully. The double standard is appalling, and if anyone is sexist, it's them. It seems like they just wanted him to stay single so she would have a backup plan and use this very lame justification. Am I the jerk for refusing to financially support my sister-in-law? Sister-in-law? I am now an engineer who is financially stable, but getting here was anything but easy. Growing up in a poor country, my father passed away while my mother was pregnant with me, leaving her to work tirelessly as a housekeeper. The women in the neighborhood who were once her friends called her the maid and looked down on her and us. I have two older brothers, Sam and Jim. Both had to drop out of school at 16, not by choice but by necessity. They took on whatever work they could find, construction, odd jobs, anything that paid. Watching them shoulder adult responsibilities when they were still boys filled me with both gratitude and guilt. Despite our struggles, my family made enormous sacrifices to send me abroad for my studies. I am forever thankful for their sacrifices and have been sending my family money monthly ever since I got my job. I've paid for both my brother's weddings, my mother's hospital bills, and much more for my nieces and nephews. A year ago, Sam was imprisoned for possession with the intent to distribute after being caught with drugs in his car. I hired the best lawyer I could find, and although Sam's sentence was reduced, he couldn't avoid jail time. Since then, I've been paying all my brother's bills. The deal was I'd cover essentials but not luxuries or vacations. A month ago, my niece called me in tears, saying she was being bullied because of her crooked teeth and wanted braces. I immediately called my sister-in-law, and told her to book an orthodontist appointment. She sent me the quote, and I wired the money right away. However, last week I saw a picture on Instagram of my sister-in-law and her kids at a resort, and my niece's teeth were still crooked. When I asked my niece about the braces, she said they couldn't afford them because I refused to pay for luxuries. I was enraged. I called my sister-in-law and told her that the money was meant for braces, not a vacation. She cried and begged me not to cut off the financial support, but I told her she brought this on herself. I then called my mother and told her I'd be sending money for the kids from now on and that my sister-in-law could get a job to support herself. Jim and my mother think I'm being an ass and argue that I owe it to Sam, who sacrificed so much for me, to keep supporting his wife. They also called me a control freak for dictating how they use the money, saying if I'm going to be charitable, it shouldn't come with strings attached. So, am I the jerk? I think you are not in the wrong here. Your sister-in-law should absolutely get a job and prioritize the family's needs. It's not fair to enable her to prioritize a vacation over her daughter's dental health and well-being. If your brother sacrificed a lot for you, help his innocent children directly instead of giving money to their mother. Whenever you wire the money for them, tell them so they know where it's going. Am I the jerk for not stopping to explain what I was doing to a bystander while I was helping a seizing man? I'll try to keep this short. I, 40-year-old female, witnessed a man have a seizure, which I was able to identify because my best friend is epileptic. A few bystanders came over and helped me stabilize him as he was a big man, and I'm an average-sized woman. Another woman and I were on the ground with him when suddenly a not-at-all good Samaritan we'll call Dick shows up and starts barking. Wrong. Orders and instructions. Neither of us listen to him or act on his demands. He gets louder and louder and starts recording, saying it's evidence that these women refuse to let me help this man. Eventually, the seizing stops and emergency medical services, EMS, and the police show up. Dick immediately accosts the medics and cops, shouting about how he was trying to help and nobody would listen to or let him. After everyone chatted, EMS confirms that what we did for the seizing man was correct. Dick is outraged and then decides to direct his ire squarely at me and tells me that all I had to do was explain it to him in the first place. Internally, I was like, what? You're suggesting the correct answer was for me to take my attention off a medical emergency and explain to you why and how I was doing what I was doing, not doing. But I said, I do not owe you or your ego any explanation for anything, ever. Most certainly not in the middle of a medical emergency, but for your information, my best friend of 25 years is epileptic. This is how I know what to do and not to do in the event of a seizure, he yelled. That's all you had to say. At this point, even the cops piped up and one said, verbatim, no she didn't bro. She was focused on helping the guy. I felt like I didn't do anything wrong but was also kind of rattled. So when my friend's wife later said I was being harsh and arrogant by not acknowledging and or addressing Dick during the actual seizure and later referring to his ego in my speech to him, I kind of felt like an asshole. She said he too was also just trying to help and possibly prevent a disaster, and then asked who anointed me the Jesus of the situation. I said, I wasn't being arrogant like Jesus. I was simply the first one to get to the guy, knew he was having a seizure, and knew what to do, so I did it and didn't concern myself with a man screaming again, wrong. Orders in the background. Outside the screaming guy, it was really a scene full of good people trying to help and made me feel better about humanity, even. And then this friend's wife basically called me an arrogant asshole. Am I? You are not the jerk. You did the right thing by focusing on the person having a seizure and not getting distracted by the loud bystander giving incorrect instructions. Your experience equipped you to handle the situation, and the emergency responders confirmed your actions were correct. The bystander's demands for explanations during a medical emergency were unreasonable, and addressing him later about his ego was justified. Prioritizing the health and safety of the seizing man was the most important thing, and you handled it well. Would I be the asshole if I take my 2 biological kids for a beach weekend when my stepkids are with their mom? Recently, my sister invited me to join her for a beach weekend while my husband is away on a work trip next month. Her husband owns a beach house, and she planned to go with her kids, our mutual best friend, and their kids. My mother-in-law disapproved of the plan because my stepchildren will be with their mother during that time, and she believes such plans should wait until I have all the kids with me. However, the reality is that nobody would truly enjoy such an outing. My husband, TJ, supports me going and has communicated this to his parents. I must admit, I am feeling conflicted about the situation. Given this context, would I be in the wrong if I choose to go on the beach weekend with just my own children? I think you are not in the wrong here. It's clear they don't see you as family, so they don't get included in your family outings. Enjoy your weekend break and ignore any input from your mother-in-law. The only person who needed to know about your beach plans apart from your sister was your husband. Have fun at the beach. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.